We've had a full week of back and forth over Lauren Boebert's and Islamophobic comments from this last weekend and from always. Just more and more videos and comments from her attacking Muslims as well as other groups. And finally, it has come to a group of 38 House progressives releasing a statement calling for her to be removed from her committee assignments, including the head of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, heads of committees, those sorts of things. Now, what does she think? Well, she's not really addressing the controversy anymore. She went on Newsmax yesterday to say, I've moved on from this controversy, which is how controversies work. When you say something awful, you decide when everyone's done with it. That's how society works. She said, I've made a public statement. I made a personal phone call to Ilhan to make things right. She hung up on me. Those are mostly lies. She did make a public statement. She said she apologized to anyone in the Muslim community I offended with my comment about Representative Omar. And that statement, which is not an apology to Representative Omar, is the closest we'll get to one, because technically Representative Omar is in the Muslim community. So she got as much of an apology as all of the more than 1 billion Muslims in the world did. But she has never apologized to the actual woman that she has repeatedly lied about in these remarks for laughter and applause from right-wing a-holes. And the phone call was not made to make things right. She just lied more to her on the phone call. So now we have this push from progressive lawmakers. I want to read a few of the things that people on the list said. Cori Bush said she needs to be removed from her committees, absolutely. She expressed hope that there are enough of us, or we can mobilize enough of us to help leadership see that this is a must. She says House leaders should act immediately rather than waiting to see what the Republicans will do, because we already know what they're gonna do and not do. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said there are a number of options before us, including censure and stripping committee assignments. I do believe we need to take action, she says. Jamal Bowman said that Republicans should strip her, but if Republicans don't, yes, I think the majority should act. And Pramila Jayapal said that stripping her should be a bipartisan thing, but added if it's not going to be, then we might as well be the ones to do it. But Nancy Pelosi is sounding the alarm. And this is where maybe we'll have a disagreement, we'll see. She said that in this like closed door meeting, that there could be a backfiring if they do punish her, saying this is hard because these people are doing it for the publicity. There's a judgment that has to be made about how we can contribute to their fundraising and their publicity on how obnoxious and dangerous they can be. But she said the rhetoric is dangerous and that the majority cannot allow Republicans to endanger members of Congress, especially because of her faith. So there's obviously a conflict there to what she's saying. She doesn't resolve it. So Brett, now it's on us. What should they actually do?
There's an if and a very clear if and only if here, Nance. You can move on. You can change the subject. You can ignore Lauren Boebert and their clear grab at fundraising if and only if you come up with literally anything else to talk about. What in the holy garbage, hot, stinking garbage has the establishment of the Democratic Party come up with to talk about? If you're like, oh, it's just a really effective messaging campaign that we're feeding into, come up with something like that and do it. But you haven't, unless the only people you can raise funds from are people whose goals, and this is it, it's lazy. I get it. She's old, she wants to retire, she didn't want to come up with, she doesn't want new tricks and whatever. Unless the only people you're raising money from have goals that are diametrically opposed to that of the American people who'd be really happy to vote for you if you just gave them stuff they cared about and made clear already they wanted.
So I agree. I think that would be great. I don't think it's gonna come from her. But what do you think about the two different approaches? So all these progressives are saying we clearly have to do something. She's repeatedly doing this. Nancy Pelosi, who I don't make a habit of agreeing with generally, is like, well, if you censure her, then she'll be a martyr and they'll fundraise off it. I don't think that Nancy Pelosi is wrong in her comments. But that said, just because you're in a difficult position doesn't mean you just, after all, she made those comments at fundraisers. So they were already fundraising pre-censure, pre-committee removal. So if you punish them, then yes, they will definitely fundraise off that, and Republicans will like it. But they clearly like them just making the comments, which they're making without having been punished already. So what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to do nothing because doing something might make them briefly happy? Should we just let them continue to generate these death threats against Muslim members of Congress because we're worried that they'll raise $50,000 off of it? Like, what are we actually supposed to do? What would leadership look like in this case?
I like the suggestion that Cenk has mentioned, that Anna has mentioned, that is just like, why don't we go fundraise off it? Why don't we being them? Like, if you're Nancy Pelosi, you say, why don't we go to Colorado and just say, here's what they're missing. You need to change, and if I get it, so all right, what do I think is the best solution? I already gave it. I think she's wrong. I think people trying to get her off the committees are wrong. I think Nancy Pelosi is closer to right, but still miles away from it. Because answers like that, debates like the one and this is where we'll get into debate. Debates like the one you just posed are the wrong thing to do.
Is it a losing argument?
Your argument is, no, your framing in this case is a loser. And it's not, I know you're not.
Well, no. This isn't framing. This isn't a forward facing thing. I'm saying, what should our strategy be?
The strategy I already laid out. Don't acknowledge it. Go out there and start messaging on stuff that's actually winners. Now, for you, my answer is they're both wrong. Option C. Focusing on this and bringing up like hateful, oh my God, this racist is racist, doesn't really provide anything, because the things that would, you've already, if you're being super cynical about it and super strategic, you've already got some, and ask them, they'll tell you. It's like people feel like they've been taken for granted in certain voting blocks when you go advocate for stuff like this. It would be better, you'd get their vote more if you added, in your big tent approach, if you added policies that people actually could get behind. Things that were popular in this bill that you gutted, the Build Back Better bill.
Yeah.
All that stuff, that's the answer. The question, should they kick her off the committee? Should they not? They don't need to kick her off committees. And I agree that by not kicking her off committees or kicking off committees, not going to have that much of a effect on Boebert's bottom line. I think Ilhan Omar might be better served instead of saying she didn't apologize to me personally, saying I am so glad that Lauren Boebert has finally joined our side in this, realizing that any messaging like that from her and her party is wrong. And I can't wait for Lauren Boebert in the future, and I'll cite her even if she doesn't do it because she's laid out her side, to be with me when I call out this similar hate to this in the future.
Yeah.
And I'll say even Lauren Boebert agrees that, and fill in the blank.
Yeah, well, look, I think obviously with the call, Lauren Boebert showed that to the extent that her original apology even was an apology, and it's hardly an apology if you don't apologize to the person you said it about. I mean, do we think that she was done telling those versions of that story? I don't think so. And the issue is, I don't disagree with you at all strategically from the zoomed out point of view of what is best for the party and the country and all that. But that said, there's also Ilhan Omar, Muslims, so some sort of affirmative defense, a vigorous defense might not be the most politically expedient thing. But these are still individuals in a group that are continually demonized and attacked, the victims of hate crimes. So that has to be a consideration, that they deserve protection even if it's not politically expedient. Right?
How is this different from all others? Sure, throw her off committees. I don't care. You need a better line than this. They need a better line than this. Period.
Well, those progressives,
she did a great job. Ilhan Omar did
talking about
more stuff where she gets out there and goes, "Here's a death threat I got," just to make this real.
I thought that was very effective.
I like that. That's great. That's the next step. I'm glad that, and I would hope Lauren Boebert would do a better job of connecting the dots about how her behavior leads to this. Anyone who denies that is weird and wrong.
Sure, I agree. I thought that she tried to. She said, like 3 hours after she put up her video, I got this death threat. I thought that was very effective.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.